Cancer UC Health offers patients
on Friday with heady light rain in the morning and then occasional showers in the afternoon. 44 degrees right now, 55 KRC, the talk station. Chuck Ingram, what is going on out there?
From the UCL Traffic Center, home to internationally known head and neck cancer physicians and researchers, UC Health offers patients new and personalized treatments. Call 513-585-UCCC. Crews continue to work with an accident southbound 71, left-hand side near Fields Erdel. Crews just cleared the wreck inbound 74 before 75. The left lane is now open again. It's going to take a few more minutes to clear out the backup from North Bend. Coming up next, a guest who's got plenty of time to be with Brian this morning because his mock draft is already complete. In fact, he's already picked the New York Giants to win the Super Bowl this year. Well ahead of me because I thought a mock draft was a new IPA at the local bar. Chuck Ingram on 55 KRC, the talk station.
8:30, 55 KRC, the talk station. Always intriguing. Sit back and wait for what Chuck Ingram is going to say in advance of Judge Napolitano every Wednesday here on 55 KRC, the talk station. Go to 55krc.com and get the podcast later in the day. And follow Judge Napolitano on Facebook, Defending Freedom, as well as judgenap.com. Welcome back, Your Honor. It's always
good morning. Good morning, Brian. I'm going to walk into my favorite pub tonight and order a mock draft and see what they give me.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Probably nothing but a strange look on their face, like, what in the hell are you talking about? Maybe you've been talking to
back
Ingram.
to Cincinnati, they'll say.
Really. Anyhow, I was pleased to see, I saw your reaction comments widely reported in mainstream media in reaction to Tucker Carlson's, departure from Fox News. There seems to be some sketchy details on the nature of his departure. Maybe you have some insight on that. But obviously, a huge impact. I've seen a lot of people say they're never going to watch Fox News again. They view this as, the eradication of, a strong counter voice to the dominant narrative in the news. He always is very controversial, but I think in the vast majority of cases, Tucker usually gets it right. He's got a good research team and he follows some good leads. And lo and behold, even, weeks after they declare him to be a nutcase, what he's talking about turns out to be true. So what's your reaction on this, Your Honor? You have any reason why he got fired? Is this motivated by that Dominion settlement or something more than that?
Well, let me start by saying I agree with everything you just said in terms of his skills and his uncanny accuracy. There are times when I don't agree with him, but his job is to put eyeballs on the screen, literally, and nobody did that at Fox better since the departure of Bill O'Reilly than Tucker Carlson. I mean, to fire him because of some private texts and tweets critical of management or critical of the culture at Fox or critical of Trump. It's like the 1927 Yankees firing Babe Ruth because of his table manners. I mean, it's a head scratcher. I don't know what precipitated this. If you look at the discovery, the documents revealed before they walked into the courtroom in the Dominion case, there are Fox friends and former colleagues of mine far more blameworthy for the Dominion mess than Tucker Carlson. I don't even have to mention their names, but he is the least blameworthy personally, as far as I can tell, of the Fox people on whom management can blame their forced settlement in the Dominion case. Now, look, there's firing and there's firing. He has 3 years to go in his contract. Don't feel sorry for him. They owe him $60 million. They can give him a check for $60 million today, or maybe they'll discount it for cash because they're paying it up front. And then he's free to do what he wants. If they follow their normal procedure, they will pay him out over 3 years, during which time he is prohibited from going on any media whatsoever because the Fox contract is in place. The contract only requires them to pay him. My contract was the same. They're boilerplate. It does not require them to put him on air. So if you see him on air, he's either violating his contract or they bought him out. If you don't see him on air, it's because they haven't bought him out and they haven't come to an agreement and he doesn't want to be in violation of the contract, because 60 million is a lot of money to almost anybody.
Now, I mean, we might get it maybe into an area that you didn't necessarily want to go down, but since you brought up the no compete clause, I've got one in my contract as well. It depends on how we ultimately part company. If I get fired, there's one tier, and if I quit, then there's another tier in terms of longevity. But I understand that. But the gray area comes in an internet world that we find ourselves in. Tucker Carlson, of course, if he's going to be paid out over 3 years from Fox News, he can't go over to CNN or any place else that might hire him. I already saw he got one offer for $25 million from one outlet. But as a private citizen, does he have the right to create his own content on his own internet page and just speak his mind any given topic like you or I would?
Well, it would depend on his contract. In my contract, I did, because my contract, by the time I left Fox, was 24 years old. All they did was change the salary and the end date. So when it was originally written, there were no podcasts. People didn't go on the internet for reasons other than inter-office communication. But his contract is only 4 years old. I'm going to guess that the people that write contracts for Fox anticipated this, and that prohibition is in there. Now, you say, does he have the right? Well, as a human being, of course, he has the right to say what he wants, but he has given up that right in return for cash. Now, he also thought he was giving it up in return for a primetime show every night, but the contract doesn't read that way. They are only required to pay him. They are not required to put him on air, and he's required to abide by the other terms of the contract. If there's some exception in there for social media, God bless him. I'm sure he'll take advantage of that. But my guess is there's not an exception in there for that, and it's covered, particularly since he had another show at Fox, which was an internet streaming show. I can't imagine that Fox would have permitted him to continue something like that after he left the Fox ambit.
And the final issue, I suppose, and I'm sure they got this covered as well, his content probably belongs to them during the period of the contract, but him writing, him doing columns like the one you wrote that comes out tonight, we'll be talking about here in a moment. If he could write a book and sell that as content. I'm not worried that he doesn't have enough money to last him for the next few years.
Yeah,
I'm sure he is fat and happy.
It's funny. Theoretically, these contracts require Fox's approval for speeches, for editorials, and for books. Brian, most of us never got the approval. We never asked for it. We just went out and did it. And Fox took the position, well, it's PR for Fox. The judge wrote a book. It's a bestseller. The cover identifies him as a senior judicial analyst at Fox News. It's free publicity for us. What do we care if it puts a few bucks in his pocket? That was the attitude of management at Fox for years. And again, I don't know how meticulously they would enforce that with respect to his contract. I would think any book that he writes would be a #1 bestseller almost overnight.
Yeah, well, we can only hope for that continued content because that's what people are going to be clamoring for. It'll be an empty spot on Fox News where you used to get this really insightful commentary and thoughtful analysis.
And as for Tucker personally, he's a very resilient guy. He has 9 lives like a cat. He was once fired by MSNBC. I mean, I don't want to say with whom, but in Fox with a very senior person when Tucker was on MSNBC and attacking Fox people by name, and a very high-ranking person said, that guy will never set foot at Fox as long as I'm alive. Well, the person who said that is alive still. And Tucker, of course, had 7 fantastic years at Fox. So he has a way of coming back. There's something very endearing about him.
Well, there's a demand out there for your content. You supply the content. People are going to go after it. And that's, of course, where Tucker Carlson will continue even after his departure. On to your column, Fighting Putin for Empire. Drawing some parallels between Afghanistan and Ukraine, are we, Your Honor?
I am, Brian. Afghanistan was nothing more than a fight for empire. The Bush administration wanted to be able to control more countries in the Middle East. We already have an alliance with Israel. Israel's dependent upon us for billions of dollars a year. Bush wanted to control Afghanistan and eventually Iraq. He, of course, ultimately lost control of both. What does NATO want? What does Joe Biden want? To control Ukraine. Why did the Obama administration, the State Department, trigger a coup in Ukraine in 2014? Because they were cozying up to the Russians. This is all goes back to American empire. Joe Biden has American boys firing weapons at Russian boys without authorization from the Congress because he wants empire. Same thing Bush wanted. And he's going to end up with his legacy in the dustbin of history, which is where George W. Bush's is today. Everybody, Republicans and Democrats, recognize Afghanistan and Iraq as monstrosities and disasters. Donald Trump is the most significant Republican who had the courage to speak out against it during the Republican primaries in 2015 and 2016. He broke with the Republican Party and said Bush was a disaster. The invasion of Afghanistan was a disaster. The invasion of Iraq was a disaster. I'm bringing the troops home. We know what happened when Joe Biden brought them home was a deal the Trump administration concocted because they thought they would still be in power by the time the troops had to come home. Joe Biden felt he needed to comply with it. It was a disaster. 13 Americans were killed. Thousands of Afghani were killed. And the country is now controlled by the same mindset that Bush tried to get rid of 20 years and $2 trillion with a T dollars ago.
Well, and I'm not laughing at the circumstances. I was smiling and laughing in reaction to the one single thing that Joe Biden did that Donald Trump put in place was withdraw from Afghanistan on the former Trump timetable. Everything else he ignored. And as a new president, he could have gone in and said, listen, that was Donald Trump. That was not me. That is not what I'm going to plan on doing. Or if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it on my own timetable.
Right. And now he announces his run for re-election in a video where it sounded like he was talking in a whisper. The music was louder than he was. 60% of the country thinks he's too old and doesn't want to see him run again. 45% of Democrats don't want to see him run. 60% of Republicans think that if Trump runs against Biden, Biden wins.
Yeah.
Do we really want a rematch this time of octogenarians? Okay, Trump will be 79. He won't be quite 80, but you get my point.
I do.
Or do both parties need fresh blood? The one thing I'll say about Trump is he is steadfastly, even though he used drones to kill people, which I condemned at the time, and still do, he is steadfastly against these forever wars, including the war in Ukraine. Interesting. Trump and DeSantis are against the war in Ukraine. The other Republicans, like most Republicans in Congress, are in favor of it.
Well, real quick, I just want to sort of leave with this thought point because I brought it up quite a few times. And I know you're staunchly pro-life. There's no question about that. You're a Roman Catholic. You are as old school as they get when it comes to that. You believe in life at conception. But Donald Trump does not. He believes there should be some exceptions for abortion. So it's always, I bring this up because I have a huge swath of my listening audience who are, they call themselves, the always Trumper folks, or anytime I suggest Donald Trump is not a great candidate for a number of reasons, just trying to be objective, I get yelled at. I get, how dare you,
Right.
But on the same time, the same group of people quite often are 100% pro-life. Abortion never, in no circumstance. So I just throw it out there. I'm wondering how they're going to reconcile that and which of the one will outweigh the other in terms of issues.
Abortion is turning out to be a major drag for Republicans. It turns out that even mainstream Republicans who were pro-life when abortion was regulated by Roe versus Wade, now that they have the opportunity to regulate it themselves at the state level, are not in favor of these absolute prohibitions. One state recently, I think South Dakota, signed an absolute prohibition after 6 weeks. I mean, the true right to life, people believe that life begins at conception, and so they would disagree even with that statute.
Right.
But that statute would not pass muster today with mainstream Republicans. So my Princeton classmate, who wrote the Dobbs opinion, Justice Sam Alito, got rid of Roe versus Wade, but handed the Republicans a mess that they really don't know how to regulate.
That's true.
One of the ways to test the Republican bona fides on pro-life issue is how many times when Republicans controlled Congress and had a Republican in the White House, that's 2 of Bush's years, George W., and 2 of Trump's years, was legislation introduced in Congress to define the fetus in the womb as a person. Easy number to remember, 0.
Exactly.
So I'm not so sure that the Republican embrace of the pro-life movement was just political and not moral.
Wonderful point, and one that I share with you. Judge Napolitano, always a pleasure, my friend. JudgeNap.com, and follow him on Facebook, Defending Freedom. I'll look forward to next Wednesday, as always, Your Honor.
Thank you. Judging Freedom, Colonel Douglas
Judging
McGregor, today at 3:00 Eastern, and then at 4:00 Eastern, Jack Devine, former number 3 or 4 in the CIA, to sort of be counterpoint to the good Colonel.
Judging Freedom. Apologize and correction on that. My listeners will be checking it out. Judge Napolitano, next Wednesday, my friend. I look forward to it.
All the best, my man. Thank you, Brian.
And you. 8:45 here, 55 KRC, the talk station. Union Bank, Suzette Lowe's Camp's waiting for your call for any